Hello, and welcome to the NEH Institutes webinar for prospective applicants. Institutes are 1 to 4 week professional development programs that provide stipends for a nationwide audience of educators, either at the K-12 or higher education level, to deepen their understanding of a variety of humanities topics and enrich their capacity for effective teaching and scholarship. Applications due in February 2024 for this current cycle are for programs taking place in 2025. Today's webinar will provide an overview of the program and application process. First, some introductions. I'm LaQuanda Walters Cooper, a program officer in the Division of Education and program lead for the Institute's program.
And I'm Emily Brantley, program analyst for the Institute's program. Together, we represent a team of approximately 10 other program officers. We want to begin by pointing out important dates for the upcoming application cycle. We will host several outreach activities in December and January. We will host a live Q&A session for this grant program on Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. We will also host 4 virtual office hours sessions for applicants on Thursday, January 4th and Friday, January 5th, 2024 for questions prior to the draft submission deadline. Each day, office hours will run from noon to 1 p.m. and again from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. You can access these outreach sessions via the links on the program resource pages. We are accepting optional drafts until 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Friday, January 5th, 2024. Potential applicants may send draft narratives to the Institute's program inbox, and a program officer will review your draft and provide you with feedback. Drafts can be complete project narratives or works in progress, such as a project outline. Final applications will be due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on February 14th, 2024 via grants.gov. This presentation will roughly follow the formatting of our Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, which contains grant information for both institutes for K-12 educators and institutes for higher education faculty. If you don't currently have this document nearby, we strongly encourage you to access it, which you can do by visiting the website for the program you're interested in applying for. Please see the website addresses below and scroll down to Step 1 and Application Materials. The links for these pages are included in the description section below this video for easy access. While this webinar will not cover every detail contained in the NOFO, we will provide a general overview, highlight some of the most important parts, and point out areas that are different this year, such as the combined NOFO. Moving forward, this document will contain grant information for both Institutes for K-12 educators and Institutes for higher education faculty.
The NOFO is your guide for how to build a strong application, so we encourage you to become familiar with it and refer to it as you develop your application. The NOFO is organized into 3 general sections. The first section, pages 1 through 9, describes what this program is about, what we're looking for, who's eligible, etc. The second section, or section D, pages 9 through 32, lays out the specifics of what exactly should be included in your application, including formatting guidance. The third section, on pages 33 through 35, lists the application review information. The review criteria for applications can be found on pages 33 through 34. The application review process is described on pages 34 through 35. Before we begin discussing the Institute's program, we want to provide some programmatic updates, especially for teams who have applied to run an institute in the past. For previously funded projects, you are considered previously funded if your project director and co-directors have been previously awarded under the Institute's landmarks or seminar programs. Previously funded projects must wait a year before reapplying. Previously funded projects must submit all participant evaluations without modifications, such as data cleaning or analysis charts. Special considerations for previously funded projects have been integrated within narrative sections. The project development section has been eliminated. If you have previously received an Institute's award, you must limit your narrative to 12 pages. Program outputs. This is a new requirement for all applicants. A program output statement must be included with the work plan. Applicant eligibility. While an organization can submit multiple project applications, an individual may not serve as project director for those multiple proposed projects. Replacement directors. As replacement directors must be an existing project team member, retainment stipends can be excluded from the budget. Attachments. Attachment 1, application narrative, must begin with a one-paragraph summary of the project. Attachment 5, letters of commitment and support, additional clarifications have been made regarding who is required to submit these letters. Please see page 16 of the NOFO for more information. As previously stated, institutes are 1 to 4 week professional development programs that provide stipends for a nationwide audience of educators, either at the K-12 or higher education level, to deepen their understanding of a variety of humanities topics and enrich their capacity for effective teaching and scholarship. Institutes can offer their programs in one of 3 formats: residential, virtual, or combined. Applications due in February 2024 for this current cycle are for programs taking place in 2025.
Institutes should immerse participants in studying significant humanities topics in new or existing areas of study. They should kindle participants' spark for teaching and foster lasting and impactful intellectual and professional communities. As you're applying to the National Endowment for the Humanities, it is essential to keep the humanities at the core of your project. We recommend grounding your proposed project in significant humanities texts and resources, and using multiple approaches to explore your topic. Institutes host 25 to 36 participants and are designed primarily for an audience of classroom educators, be they K-12 teachers or faculty who teach undergraduate students. Project applications must indicate the specific number of participants that the proposed program will accommodate. You must draw from a nationwide audience of educators. Proposed projects aimed at specifically educators from one municipality, state, or region are not appropriate for this grant program. Institutes for higher education faculty must reserve 20% of available spaces for non-tenured or non-tenure track faculty and 10% of available spaces for advanced graduate students. Institutes for K-12 educators must reserve 20% of available spaces for educators who have been in the field for 5 years or fewer. Participant spots may also be filled by other educators like librarians, museum professionals, and academic personnel, provided that their participation advances project goals and enhances their own professional work. We encourage you to seek a broad and diverse participant cohort with a diversity of disciplines and academic backgrounds, but you may target more focused audiences by designating additional special qualifications. For example, you could require proficiency in a foreign language, say Latin, for a project focused on Roman literature. For K-12 projects, all K-12 teachers are eligible for all K-12 projects and should not be excluded based on what grade they teach. However, your application must state which grade level or levels your project is primarily designed for: K-5, 6 through 8, and/or 9 through 12.
Now let's move on to format and program of study. As previously stated, institutes can offer their program of study in one of 3 formats: residential, virtual, or combined. In the residential format, all participants attend the program on site. In the virtual format, all participants attend the program online, whether synchronously or asynchronously. In the combined format, all participants attend part of the program online and part of the program on site. All participants must be engaged in the same format simultaneously. Participant stipends are determined by NEH based on both the format and duration of the institute. One set of rates for residential and combined programs, and another for fully virtual programs. Institute's programs of study can take place before, during, and/or after the traditional summer season, and some sessions can be offered in consecutive weeks and/or spread out over a longer period of time. Institutes run from 1 to 4 weeks, and for combined and virtual programs who might be spreading their sessions out, 1 week should be understood as 5 to 6 days of structured study. Additionally, we encourage Institute project teams to consider a variety of post-project outreach activities for participants, such as project resource pages, group follow-up sessions, listservs, social media posts or groups, and conference presentations. Your project team must include a project director or co-director team. Directors should be established humanities scholars and are responsible for all of the project's intellectual and administrative aspects. If applicable, you must state how co-director teams are dividing responsibility. It is not required for project directors to be employed by or affiliated with an institution. In fact, a growing number of projects have co-directors across multiple institutions. Additionally, more projects are being hosted off-site with partnering institutions. For example, in one recently funded project, the applicant institution, Eastern Michigan University, will conduct its institute in Detroit in collaboration with Wayne State University and the University of Michigan. If you're planning a collaborative effort such as this, your letters of support and commitment must directly acknowledge support for these collaborations. A replacement director or directors. Should a director become unable to fulfill their role, an appropriately qualified replacement director must be identified in advance. Replacement directors must be either a co-director or project team member who is already familiar with the project. K-12 institutes must include at least one K-12 specialist to be involved throughout project planning and implementation. This person should have demonstrated excellence and leadership experience in K-12 classrooms and with K-12 curricula. For repeat directors and institutes, past participants may be a good place to start. All teams will likely also include additional visiting scholars and academic staff who bring different perspectives or resources to your project. Teams will also likely include administrative and technology support staff, such as project managers, instructional or technological experts, depending on the proposed project's design. All teams must include an institutional grant administrator who is different from the project directors. This person is the designated representative of the applicant institution and has the authority to act on the organization's behalf regarding the administration of the award.
If you are interested in applying to direct an institute, make sure that you have an eligible organization on board with your project, because you cannot apply for this grant as an individual. Federal entities, foreign organizations, and for-profit organizations are also ineligible to apply. The NEH cannot award grants to non-federal entities whose projects are so closely intertwined with another federal entity that the project takes on characteristics of that federal entity's own authorized activities, nor can the NEH fund projects that directly benefit another federal entity. Note that institutes and projects in our sibling program, Landmarks of American History and Culture, cannot be repeated in consecutive years. Previously funded projects must wait 1 year before reapplying.
So now that you know the program, it's time to apply. The first step is to ensure that your SAM.gov and grants.gov registrations and passwords are current, because NEH will not grant deadline extensions for delayed registration. Registration in these systems can take up to a month to complete, so check on this as soon as possible. Remember, you are applying as an institution, so you will use your institution's account information. If you are unsure where to locate this information for your institution, staff in your development, grants management, or sponsored programs offices should be able to assist you. When you're in grants.gov, be sure to select or have your grant administrator select the appropriate package based on your project type so your application is evaluated appropriately. That is, be sure to select K-12 versus higher ed correctly. This is a very common error, so be sure to double check with your grant administration that they or you have selected the correct package for your project. As we mentioned before, the NOFO is your guide for building your application. Section D2, beginning on page 10 of the NOFO, is probably the most important part because it concentrates on the content of your application. This section includes important and specific details regarding what must be included in your application and in what specific order, and how files must be named. We encourage you to read this section and follow its directions very closely. Next, we want to highlight some important information regarding document formatting, specific details of which can be found on pages 10 through 11 of the NOFO. First, unless otherwise specified, narratives and attachments should be single-spaced. Second, please note the different page limits for new and previously funded projects. If you have not been previously funded in the Institute's Landmarks or Seminars programs, you must limit your application narrative to 10 pages. If you have previously received an award under the Institute's Landmarks or Seminar programs, your narrative must be limited to 12 pages. Please be advised that applications with components that exceed stated page limits will be automatically declared ineligible. Third, all attachments must be PDFs. The grants.gov system will allow uploads of Word and Excel files, but it will also automatically mark as ineligible on our end, and we will not be able to review it. So please take the time and check that all your files, including your budget justification, are saved as.
Institute applications will be evaluated using 3 review criteria: intellectual quality and significance, program design and feasibility, and impact. For intellectual quality and significance, reviewers will consider the significance of the topic for humanities scholarship and teaching. For program design and feasibility, reviewers will examine how the project's proposed length, meeting dates, format, facilities, and related resources support both substantive study and a collegial learning environment. And for impact, reviewers will be looking to understand how the proposed project will improve participants' understanding of the core humanities topics. As noted earlier in this webinar, additional indicators for each review criteria can be found on pages 32 and 33 of the NOFO.
As you draft, review, and revise your application, we'd like to offer some advice. First, the application must make the case for your project. Start with the review criteria in the NOFO. Demonstrate your project significance. Provide context for the Institute's humanistic content, and ensure the work plan and program of study are both clear and realistic. Second, remember your audience. Keep the review criteria in mind and address them in the narrative. Write for specialists and generalists. Avoid jargon. Use concrete examples. Anticipate reviewers' possible questions and concerns and address them within the narrative. Third, attend to the details. Draft early and solicit feedback, either by submitting a draft to us or having a trusted colleague review your work. Discuss your application with those responsible for writing letters of commitment and support. Review your bibliography and reading lists. Include required supporting materials. Proofread. Finally, keep budget considerations in mind. We will return to the budget on a subsequent slide. Consult budget guidelines in the NOFO, as well as the sample budget justification on the program resource page. Know which costs are and are not allowed. Contact the Office of Grant Management with specific questions at grantmanagement@neh.gov. Contact staff in your development, grants management, or sponsored programs offices for assistance.
The project narrative is attachment 1 of the completed application. Some things we want to highlight for you as you develop this section of your application. The narrative must begin with the nature of the request, a 1-paragraph summary that includes the project title and its thematic or topical focus, whether this project is new or previously funded, and if applicable, how many times you have offered it previously, the length, dates, and format of the proposed institute, the specific number of participants the program will accommodate. You must indicate a specific number between 25 and 36, and target audience. While projects must be open to all eligible applicants, you must indicate the target audience by subject areas for institutes for higher education faculty, and by both specific grade levels and subject areas for institutes for K-12 educators. The nature of the request should be followed by these sections. Intellectual content and significance, formerly referred to as the intellectual rationale, explains why is this subject important. Format and program of study details how is the institute designed and how will participants explore the subject matter. Project team introduces who will work on the project. Institutional resources contextualizes what organizational resources will be provided to support the project and participants. And participants and follow-up specifies who is the intended participant audience, how will they be recruited to apply, and how will the project team follow up with participants post-institute. There are call-outs for each section that apply specifically to previously funded projects. There are also multiple cues for applicants designing virtual or combined format projects where you'll need to share information about the platforms you'll be using, the audiovisual resources that will support you, etc. In addition to the project narrative, a completed institute's application includes the following attachments described in more detail on pages 15 and 16 of the NOFO. Attachments 2 through 5 are required for all applications, both new and previously funded. Attachment 6 is required for previously funded projects. Attachments 7, 8, and 9 are conditionally required. If your proposal meets the specified conditions, you must submit those attachments. For the purposes of this webinar, we will focus on attachments 2 through 6. Attachment 2 is the academic schedule. This is the daily schedule for the program of study, which also includes a list of readings. Attachment 3 is the work plan. This document provides detail of the activities that will take place during the grant period, both before and after the program of study. NEH has scheduled required meetings, participant application deadlines, and reporting dates. These dates are provided in the NOFO on pages 15 and 16 and must be included in your work plan. Attachment 4 is a collection of resumes for key project personnel. Each resume must not exceed 2 pages per project team member. Attachment 5 is a collection of letters of commitment and support. There are specific requirements for who must submit a letter. Please see page 16 for this list. For previously funded projects only, Attachment 6 is a collection of all participant evaluations from the most recent iteration of your institute, landmarks, or seminar program. These evaluations must be submitted in their original format. We now return to your project's budget. The research and related budget form will automatically integrate into your application, so you do not have to include it as an attachment. This is a form used across the federal government, so it is important that you read the NOFO guidelines on how exactly to fill it out for this grant program's purposes. Some other things to note: all projects are required to submit a budget justification to complement the budget form itself. Be sure to attach that as a PDF. Compensation for project directors is typically calculated based on salary, fringe benefits, and project time. Stipend amounts are set by NEH and vary depending on both format and duration.
There are several things we recommend you avoid in your application. You can find a more complete listing of funding restrictions on pages 31 and 32 of the NOFO, but we want to caution you against some of the most common issues we see in applications. The NEH cannot fund the promotion of any one political, religious, or ideological point of view. Advocacy for a particular program of social or political action or support of specific public policies or legislation. Instead, we recommend that applications include diverse and varied voices, scholars, and sources on your topic, root contemporary real-world issues in the humanities and focus on that humanities content in your application, and avoid buzzwords and jargon. While we value the integration of effective pedagogy and sound methodology in Institute's projects, your project must center humanities content. The NEH also cannot fund projects that fall outside of the humanities. Projects should not incorporate the creation or performance of art, nor should projects focus on participants developing products rooted in creative writing, autobiography, memoir, creative fiction, or policy studies. The NEH cannot fund tuition fees for participants or student assistants. Participants are paid stipends, and student assistants can be paid members of the project team, but tuition is not an allowable expense. The NEH cannot fund things like socials, alcohol, or most meals, though there are some exceptions for working lunches and water.
Before we conclude this webinar, we want to remind you of the important dates for the upcoming application cycle. We will host several outreach activities in December and January. We will host a live Q&A session for this grant program on Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. We will also host 4 virtual office hours sessions for applicants on Thursday, January 4th, and Friday, January 5th, 2024, for questions prior to the draft submission deadline. Each day, office hours will run from noon to 1 p.m. and again from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. You can access these outreach sessions via the links on the program resource page. We are accepting optional drafts until 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Friday, January 5th, 2024. Potential applicants may send draft narratives to the Institute's program inbox, and a program officer will review your draft and provide you with feedback. Drafts can be complete project narratives or works in progress, such as a project outline. It's especially helpful if you submit your materials with specific questions you'd like the program officer to address. Please note that this optional preliminary review is not part of the formal review process and has no bearing on the final outcome of the proposal. However, previous applicants across grant programs have noted that participating in preliminary review has been helpful in strengthening their applications. Final applications will be due by 11:59 p.m. Eastern on February 14, 2024 via grants.gov. We advise you not to wait until the last minute in case of technical issues and to account for processing time to validate in the grants.gov system. It's also a good idea, especially if you're at a larger institution, to check with your institutional grant administrator or your grants office to see if they have an earlier internal deadline you'll also need to be aware of.
The life cycle of an institute's application is approximately 6 months. There are 7 steps in the life cycle of an institute's application, beginning with application submission. Following applicant submission deadlines, program staff will sort applications by topic and organize review panels. During the review panels, peer reviewers will discuss the applications, enter additional comments, and assign final ratings for each application on its own merits. At the conclusion of the review panels, program staff will organize the results from all panels, summarize panelists' comments and evaluations, and make recommendations to the National Council, an advisory body of 26 members who have distinguished themselves in the humanities. Members are nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate. They will meet in November 2024 to discuss the applications and make their recommendations for funding to the chair of the endowment. Once the National Council has deliberated, the chair of the endowment will decide which applications will receive public funding. By law, the chair makes all final funding decisions. Finally, all applicants are informed of the funding decision. Regardless of the outcome of your application, you can get the most out of your relationship with the NEH by asking for your reviewer comments, contacting us for additional feedback or guidance, volunteering to serve as an NEH panelist, and applying again for this and other grant opportunities. Thank you so much for joining us. Here is our contact information, which is also listed online and in the NOFO. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with questions and drafts. We look forward to hearing from you, and we wish you the best of luck.